Hey everybody, good old Terry back again here, coming at you pre-recorded from Rebel Rooster Headquarters. A little excited today because now we're getting to do we're getting into the fun part. We're getting into a good paint, and we're going to start doing some different techniques with the airbrush, playing around with the pressure and everything. So just before we delve into that, I mentioned to you that I was going to clean the parts out in between, and kind of neglected to tell you how I do that. There's a lot of different techniques, but what I like to do is I just like to, with a glove, and if you got hands that aren't adult size like mine, I just got regular size hands. I like these black gloves you get at the painting section at Home Depot and Lowe's, because they don't take away too much of your feel. You know, if you use the food gloves, some people like those. They get that, you know, that too far away fingertip. See, I went to medical school. Just kidding. Anyway, and the reason I'm doing that with the glove is, you've heard the saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but in the world of chemicals, that which doesn't kill you kills you later, right? So I don't want to absorb a lot of the things that I'm putting on those. And when I clean these, I generally just repeat it, repeat until I don't need to do it anymore. I just get some paper towel and some of this denatured alcohol, and I just put it in a bottle, a squirt bottle like this. Some people use regular old IPA alcohol, but I like this stuff because it's stronger. This will attack it all the way down to and including the primer you put over there. It'll take it all the way down. Some people like to use a lacquer thinner when they do it, but you're going to want to be a little careful if you decide to do that. You can, if you got a milder lacquer thinner like this Mr. Color stuff, you're probably going to be all right. But what you don't want to do is start using this kind of lacquer thinner. This is stronger, and this is going to attack your plastic, especially you Airfix people. Their plastic is really pretty kind of susceptible to those things. But what you definitely don't want to do is use this to clean your plastic, because you're probably going to be thinking, oh, airbrush cleaner, it cleans paint, I'll use it to clean my model. But this is actually, to 1%, the same thing as the Tamiya Extra Thin. It's actually cement with 1%. I do mean 1% if you look at the MDS on it. That it's just a 1% difference from their cement. So you actually are getting cement in this thing. So if you run out of Tamiya Extra Thin, there's a little cheap shortcut for you. You can use the Tamiya Airbrush Cleaner with the pink cap for that. So again, denatured alcohol is what I like to use. And if you want to go the strong route and use something stronger, you should be okay with using the weaker lacquer thinners like the Mr. Leveling thinner, or maybe even the Tamiya lacquer thinner with the yellow top, not the, I think the new top is orange for their lacquer paints. That's stronger. So anyway, that's enough on that. We're going to start talking about the paint now. I got to go because the dog's barking. Someone's okay. So we're going to be sticking with Tamiya Acrylics today. That's the subject of this. I kind of fibbed to you. I said it's going to be a quick video, but it's probably going to be a pretty long one because there's so much you can do with these paints. They're so adaptable. You can use all kinds of different thinners and things with them, different sheens. They got clears you could use with them. It's a big can of worms, but it's a fun can of worms. You're going to like this one. We're going to be spraying their black today, and the reason I picked their black is because it's, to my knowledge, it's their only color that comes in all three sheens, flat, semi-gloss, and gloss. And there's a big difference in the way you're going to spray between your flat and your gloss. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. And we're going to talk about their clears. There's the flat base, their flat clear. Don't go buying anything of this yet till you've seen this, because you can end up kind of screwing the pooch if you pull the trigger and you pull the wrong one. So there's their flat base, their flat clear, their semi-gloss clear, and their gloss clear. Now Tamiya, oh, and by the way, something I make myself, you might, I told you I like to play with things and experiment with stuff. I take 50% of their flat clear and 50% of their semi-gloss clear, and I make myself my own little mix of satin clear. And that's it just looks nice on the aircraft. But anyway, the way they code their colors, their acrylic colors anyway, is with an X or an XF. The XF, of course, is an F, flat, F, flat. And then the X's are going to be their semi-gloss and their glosses. So if you're ever wondering the coding on that, that's how that works. Now, a disappointment with Tamiya, and it's really the only, it's not even a beef with me, it's just one of those things where I wish, you know, their color line is really kind of limited, all right? They don't have a huge spectrum of paints, which, you know, I said it's not a big deal with me because I like mixing colors and inventing things. Some people just want to go and buy these off the shelf. I want a Nakajima green cockpit color for Japanese aircraft, and they want to go to AK Real Colors or to Mr. Color, and they actually do tell you on the bottle, this is Nakajima green cockpit interior, and they want to buy that. I don't mind mixing it up myself, so it's not a big deal with me to use Tamiya. So if you're looking for a paint line that is going to have everything you want on the go, ready for you, Tamiya is probably not going to be your paint. But if you're looking for a paint that is highly adaptable, lots of fun to use, easy to clean up, this is a really good paint for you. Particularly if you're not wanting to go the lacquer route, and we'll talk. Some people don't want to do that. When we get to lacquers, we'll talk about that. But I think we could just brush behind the water-based acrylic stuff behind us. You know, we're moving on into better stuff now, and this is certainly an excellent paint. And I talked about the adaptability of it. Some people spray it with IPA alcohol. Some people spray it with this denatured alcohol. Some people, you can thin it with their X20A. You can thin it with their lacquer thinner yellow top. You can spray it with their lacquer thinner yellow top with a little bit of retarder added. And you can spray it with the bee's knees, man. You can even get the Mr. Color leveling thinner and spray it with that. And this is magic. I've told you before, and I'm just going to keep telling you again. This is magic stuff. If I could get 2 bottles of thinner in my life that I am allowed to use, it would be IPA alcohol and Mr. Leveling Thinner. Great stuff. You're going to love that with the Tamiya paint. So if you're going to pick one, I would go with that. For a second choice, I'd go with their lacquer thinner. Third choice, I don't know. You can get either of those really easily, so I'm not going to bother with a third choice. But this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and we're not going to watch this because you know how to do it by now. Being that this is a good paint, I want to give it the respect it deserves, and I'm going to take the Novus out, and I'm going to polish all the plastic again. Now, the Novus, I didn't talk about this, but you notice it's labeled 1 and 2. It's actually kind of backwards, and you'd think you'd use this first and then this. I use the 2 first to get the scratches out, then I use the 1 to clean it off. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to do it, but that's how I do it, and that's what I find best, because why would you clean the plastic off and then dirty it up with the abrasive to polish out the scratches with, unless you're going to go back to this. Why clean it to dirty it? You know what I mean? So I'm going to clean up that plastic and polish it up really well, and we're going to get started on this. And there's my remote. I'll turn this thing off and we'll get to work. See you in a little bit. Okay, everybody, we're back. I've cleaned off plastic, and I've taken the Novus out, got the plastic all nice and shiny and pretty and ready to go. Mixed up some Mr. Surfacer 1500 gray. Excuse me. General rule of thumb on that, some will tell you 1 to 1, some will tell you 2 to 1. I just go kind of about 1.5-ish to 1, you know. 1 to 1's a little thick for me, 2 to 1's kind of a little thin to me. So I just go right down the middle, and I thinned that out with Mr. Leveling Thinner. It's not critical. You could probably use a regular thinner like the Tamiya acrylic thinner. Sorry, not acrylic, but the lacquer thinner. Got a little distracted. I got a hood rat that just looking in my garage here. I'm keeping an eye on him. Anyway, so I've got that mixed up here, ready to go, and I'm gonna spray that onto the parts. I'm gonna take out our respirator mask. I'm gonna turn the fan on behind me. and the booth on, get these sprayed up, and we'll be back shortly. HPCS by Iwata, 0.35 needle, 18 psi. Here we go. Okay, I have finished priming the parts here. You know, I told you briefly about my 1.5 ratio. It's kind of one of those feel your way through it things. I like that 1.5. You know, I said because 1 to 1's kind of too thick for me. 2 to 1's a little bit too thin for me. I mean, if I had the choice, I'd go a little too thin and just have to put more coats on. But 1.5 to 1 works well, and it's that good compromise for me of getting it covered fairly quickly without becoming too thick, and it really comes out of the airbrush smooth, and it cleans very easily that way too. And that's going to be a big part of your airbrush care, is if you're cleaning your airbrush a lot, and it's not coming clean quickly, and you're having to take it apart more than, you know, once a year or something, you're spraying too thick. So that's just a quick note on that. Now, what I've done with the priming is, you can see it's there's the bare plastic, and here's the side of it. After you're priming, what you're going to want to do is let it dry a little while. Out here, for me, it's only a matter of mere minutes, you know, 2 minutes maybe, and then I start rubbing because the primer does get powdery as you spray it and build it up a little bit, and so it's a good idea to wipe it smooth. It's part of what I said earlier about giving a good paint the respect it deserves. So I'm going to show you something here now where you're really going to see the difference between the part I polished off. I shouldn't say polished, but rubbed off. Gee, I shouldn't say that either. But anyway, you know what I'm getting at. Between that one and this one is, you're really going to notice it mostly on this Canon blister here. When I put them next to each other, you're going to see it. You see what I'm talking about? How this one's, I'm not going to say it's reflective, but you see how it's got a little more throwback at you, and this one has like practically nothing. If I put them right near each other, you can really see a difference there. See? So what I did was I just got a little bit of paper towel here, and generally I really don't recommend paper towels unless you've really got some good eyes and fingers for this. I'm going to take a good quality paper towel. Here's a Bounty paper towel, which, remember, these paper towels these days, they're made to, you know, hold wet bananas for the commercial, and they're supposed to be really tough, and they're made for like really cleaning things. So they're going to be strong enough to scratch your paint. What I use is these cheap store brand paper towels. I mean, you can look at this, you can practically see my fingers through it. And this stuff I like because this will fail before it will do anything damaging to my paint. And what you're best off going to be with, don't use a cotton ball because they're going to shred fibers and everything. A soft cotton t-shirt's a good thing to do. You know, something of that type of, I don't want to say abrasion, but that type of texturing and softness. A couple people have thrown around to use those blue microfiber cloths. I'm not really crazy about those either because sometimes those come pretty stiff as well. So either an extremely soft, cheap paper towel, or a good an old sock. An old sock would work well. A cotton t-shirt, those will do you right. But you see, you can, not only can you see it on the painting, but you'll get to feeling it. You know, get the soft part of your finger. I mean, you can even hear it. See, versus this. For you guitar players, use your strumming hand. You're not going to feel that with your finger and hand because you got calluses. You farmers, you're kind of screwed. Your hands are thick as hell anyway. But, you know, if you got a soft part of your hand or maybe the meat of your thumb, you're going to be able to feel the difference, how much slicker it is. But the giveaways, it's going to be not reflective, but it's not going to be dead flat doing nothing like the unrubbed side. So just really quick, let me just kind of show you what it looks like when you're doing it. I just take a little piece about yay big, and let me zoom out just a little bit there. When I fold it into fours, so it's not, I can't push it hard enough to really get my fingers through there or hurt it. But I just kind of gently, and pretty much every time I rub anything, I just start out with a gentle, what I call a spreading rub. Kind of move things around. And then I turn it over. and I start the harder portion, the harder part of the rubbing, and I do it in circles, and I increase the pressure as I go. And now you can see that blister's kind of throwing a little bit of light back at us, and it's a lot quieter when I rub it. So there you go. That's a quick breakdown of the plastic prep. This is going to make the paint, it's going to give the primer's going to be there to give it something good to grab onto, but it's not going to have a really rough powdery surface where the paint's going to rub off really easily or look like garbage when you put it down. So I'm just going to finish the rubbing of these other two parts here, and then we're going to start mixing up paints and spraying them and letting you see what's going on. Hello again, everybody. We're back here. Hey, just a little tip for you if you ever decide to go making videos one day, testing things out or whatever. Not that I'm any good at it or anything, because I'm truly at the rookie stage here, but I do a lot of testing, and I get some methods down. But when you're doing a lot of shooting with different things, it's a good idea. You know, I showed you these mixing tubes before. I just put a label on the top so I know what's in each one. And I just pre-mix the paints and lay them on the side, and then I don't have to go through a lot of time wasted. So just a little tip for you. I'm going to pre-mix some of these paints here for the first set of shots. You don't want to leave them in there so long that they start interacting with the BB or anything weird in there, or starting to dry in the tubes, but it saves you quite a bit of time to get these things ready ahead of time. So I'm just going to mix these tubes up, and we're going to start spraying the X20A, or I'm sorry, not the X20A. We're going to start mixing the XF1, the flat black. We're going to shoot it with the IPA alcohol, 99% concentration. I don't like the 70% concentration alcohol. Just got a little bit too much water in there for me, and for my taste and for the results you get from it. But the 91% is really good. The 99 is even better. And we're going to shoot through the X20A and that 99% IPA alcohol, and get back to letting you know what's going on with the rest of the concentrations. And I'm going to mix these right around 1.5 to 2 to 1 again. This is really easy. It's kind of hard to screw up Tamiya paint when you're mixing it. 1 to 1 again. I still think it's quite a bit too thick for you. It's just going to make your brush harder to clean. It may cover your subject quicker, and you're gratified because your painting is done faster, but the finish will suffer a little bit from it, and the airbrush will be a little tougher to clean. So I'd say 1.5 to 1 or 2 to 1. And again, we're always talking thinner first, paint second. So here we go. Be back with you shortly. Okay, we're ready to start the spraying here. I'm going to move to the booth a little bit later, but for right now, I'm just shooting IPA alcohol. I've got the fan blowing, so that'll keep it away from me. So I talked to you about the mixing ratio, about 1.5 to 1. A good little rule of thumb to find out if you've done it right. Oh, well, there I blew that one. I dropped one. Let's get another one this time without dropping it. Got to find one with an A on it. There we are. I dropped it because I was getting my magnets to make sure the BB doesn't go down into the color cup. But anyhow, when you pour it into your airbrush cup, close that up, is take it up to the side here. I hope you can see this. And you want it to kind of run up the side, but not stick there fully concentrated. You see how it's kind of falling down and losing its grip. It's kind of thinning as it falls. That's a good sign that you got it mixed about right. So I'm shooting this again, Iwata HPCS at about 18 psi, and you're going to be about this far away. It's about 5-6 inches away, 4 to 5 inches. Get your paint flowing, and then just back and forth, overlapping light coats, and build it up. Now you see it takes a little longer. Look how nicely this stuff sprays too. And since I'm using the IPA, this dries lightning quick as I put it on there, so I can go right to the next coat. What I'm going to show you is down here. Actually, I'll just kind of do this in the front. If I really try to get it all in one thing, you'll see later on that's a little gloppy when you try to do it all at once. Now you see, because it dries so quick, because I'm using the IPA alcohol, it's really, it puts the flat in flat black. See? It really does. And that's something I really like about this paint, is it lays flat. And that's also the reason I don't shoot it with IPA typically as a thinner, because you'll see it's not as strong as using an actual thinner for it. But I gotta clean off my my leg and my pants. I'm just so glad I'm wearing black shorts today, or that would have really been embarrassing. I'll clean this up, and I'll go ahead and finish the spraying off camera for this, and then we'll what I'll do is every time I change grade of paint, I'll show you how to spray, because you're going to spray the flat, the semi-gloss, and the gloss differently. But for the piece to piece, where I'm using the same type of paint, just changing the thinner, I'll just do that off camera, so I'm not wasting too much of your time. See you again. Okay, just going to do a little more, one more little thing to show you the spraying on this. There's really not much to show you with the spraying portion, because this is really, there's really not much to it. It's really easy with the Tamiya paints. I'm shooting about 15 psi. I've got it mixed again, 1.5 to 1, and we're just about 4 or 5 inches away. And you just go back with overlapping layers, and it takes a little build up. We shot it with the X20, I'm sorry, the IPA and the X20A. The X20A shot a little smoother than the IPA did. And this is Tamiya's lacquer thinner, which is also spraying just a little smoother than even the X20A was. When we get to the finished portion, you're going to see how each subsequent thinner looks a little bit better on the finish than the one before it, as it increased in strength. And something I do, you don't really have to do this, I don't even know if it makes any difference, but I do change directions every once in a while. It helps you fill in the gaps. It's kind of like when you fertilize your lawn. You're going to have stripes if you only go in one direction, because the concentration tends to be there. It hits the wheels on your spreader and those kinds of things, but if you take 2 or 3 directions, it spreads it more evenly, so everything comes out evenly. So that was pretty much, and this works for pretty much however you thin it, whatever you thin it with. It's really a simple paint to spray. There's really not much more to show you until I get to the semi-gloss and the gloss. So while I'm spraying this XF1, the flat, there's really nothing else to show you. And that's going to be it for this short segment. Let's take a break, and I'll see you again. Okay, we are back again. Now we're going to be shooting the X18. This is the semi-gloss. We're shooting it in this order. We will do it first thinned with IPA. Then we will do it thinned with X20A. Then we will do it thinned with the Tamiya lacquer thinner. And then finally with the Mr. Leveling thinner. Now we're going to spray this just a little differently than we did with the flat. We're going to go a little closer to it, and we're going to spray it a little thicker on there. And we're going to see it goes on smoother than the flat, but it does take a little bit of a different technique to get it on there. So got the brush loaded up. And let me just make sure I'm hitting the right thing. X18 IPA, okay, and that was tube number 1 with the IPA, okay. Hope I got enough for this. I didn't put a few drops on there. But this time we're gonna, again, overlapping, building it up, kind of getting it a little wet in appearance as we do it. And this being a curved surface is going to be tough with the limited amount I put in there because I was lazy. Get a little up here. should be running out of paint any second now. Yep, how about that? Right when I said. Now, let me show you another thing I like about Tamiya paint here, okay? I clean in between with regular old hardware store lacquer thinner. And let me show you what I like about Tamiya paint. Now you can thin it with the stuff you're you can clean it with the stuff you're using as thinner, but that's just a little bit expensive. So what I'm just gonna do is use a little bit of lacquer thinner, the cheap lacquer thinner, just a few drops. You see it turns black right away. That's telling me that it's cleaning it. I'm just gonna give it a second of backflush real quick. Swirl it around. I'm gonna turn my fan on and it's gonna be loud, I'm sorry. I'm going to swirl the brush around as I'm spraying it. And look, in the cup, it's already clean. Okay? Just for goodness sake, I'm going to give it one more quick one of those. Just for being thorough, because that's how I do things. And between the paint being thinned properly and better, and that this cleans easy, nothing but thinner comes out. See, it doesn't paint it. No more paint. See, nothing there. See how easily that cleaned? Far easier than those water-based acrylics did. And it's not so chemically sensitive that it's going to get screwed up by that little trace of whatever may remain of that lacquer thinner. That's good enough. It's ready to go for the next one, which is going to be tube number 2. Which is the X18 thinned with the X20A acrylic thinner. And that's going to be this one right here. Same technique. And you'll notice that it comes out a little smoother than the alcohol does. But it's not going to dry as darn fast. I mean, it's not going to dry slow. Let me get the skeeter out of here. It's not going to dry slow, but it's not going to be as lightning fast to dry as the IPA alcohol is. And you see I'm a little closer. I'm about 3 inches away. And I'm kind of spraying it wet. A consistent spray here. And I should be running out of paint. Nope, not even close. That's going to be enough to cover it, so I'll call that good. I'll put this one over here. And I got a little bit of paint in here. I'm just going to spray that out into my can here. I got my blowers going, so I'm getting all this stuff away from me. A little bit of lacquer thinner again. See, I'm not putting much in there, just that little bit. Quick backflush. And loud fan coming. Get it out of there. One more quick, and again, look at already pretty much gone. And I will do that a quick shot one more time. A little more lacquer thinner in here. Spray it. Clean, good to go. So between proper thinning and a good paint, you see how much easier this is to use? Which brings us to tube number 5. No, tube number 6. Tube number 6. This is going to be the X18 thinned with the Tamiya lacquer thinner, the yellow top. Something else I'm going to show you after a little bit. You see I got some paint on my fingers. I'm going to show you something else with that a little later too. Let's see, Tamiya lacquer thinner, that's this one. And this comes out even a little smoother still than the X20A did. See, you spray it so it looks a little wet as it goes on. that's done. I'll clean this out, and then we will be down to our last contestant, contestant number 4, which is gonna be the magic stuff, the bee's knees, the ever so wonderful Mr. Leveling Thinner. I'm sorry if that thing's really loud, guys, but you know, you gotta be careful. You gotta live to build these things, and it's not gonna happen if you get yourself a cancerous mass in there because you didn't want to run your fans, right? Okay, last one, tube number 5, and that's gonna be X18 with Mr. Leveling Thinner. Close that up. Got a lot of paint on my hands here now. And that's the right one here. Again, this is going on so. This is like melted butter, guys. You should just see how wonderfully this sprays. I am McLovin' it. I'm kind of varying my pattern. This isn't the most disciplined spray pattern in the world, but it certainly is getting the job done. Okay, but look, I still got a little bit of paint left in there. I'm just going to help it come out quicker and thin it out a little bit. Cleaning go a little quicker here. And there we go. And that concludes the X18. We'll let that dry, and then we'll do the X1, the gloss black. Okay. Now for this, the gloss black, we're going to do a couple things differently. With the flat and the semi, I went about 1.5 to 1. For the gloss, we're going to go 2 to 1. We're going to go a little thinner. I'll show you why in a second. Now, remember I told you about how you can tell by, if you've got the mix right, by it kind of shows up and holds itself there for a minute. Not even a minute, just a few seconds, and it starts kind of sliding down. You're going to see, as I bring the camera over here, you can see the mixing tubes, how the paint has kind of run down the side after being mixed. If you get it from another angle, you might see it a little better here. There you go, now you can see what I'm talking about. You see the one I just shook already? It had filled up the tube completely, and now it's run down the side. It's still holding opacity. It's still solid paint. Solid color, I should say. But it's not sticking to the side, so I know it's not too thick. So we're going to do this a little differently now. We're going to start with the IPA. And it's going to be tougher to show you with this one because the IPA dries a little bit too fast to be much good for this example. The technique is still going to be the same regardless. So get a little bit of paint coming out of here. And the first thing you're going to want to do with a good gloss coat is you're going to lay down what they call a tack coat. Okay? You see how it's just barely covering it? This is IPA, it dried pretty quick. Then what you're going to want to do after that is dried. It shouldn't take long. Because then you're going to go on heavy and wet. Kind of like we did with the Mission Models paints. And being that this is IPA, it's probably not going to work all that great because it's drying too quickly and it's not getting a chance to level itself and to cure slowly. But with each subsequently strong thinner, give that a little bit to dry here. Shouldn't take but a couple coats, but if you thin properly, it should take you a few coats to get this covered completely because it's really thin. But that's important because you want them to lay on top of each other and flat and settle down smoothly together like that. Okay, so I'm gonna hit it with the other coat now. And then we'll be done with this one. But you see, I'm about the same distance as the one before. I'm about right around 3 inches from it. 2 to 3 inches. Still got a little bit of paint in here, so let me get rid of that. Here comes a loud fan. Alright. Now let me clean this out. Alright. Do this. And we'll do that. Alright, for a little bit. It's going to take a second because I put a little more than I usually do in here. There you go. And a quick quickie. And now we are ready for the next one. And it's going to be the X1 gloss with the X20A. That's the acrylic thinner again, remember? And this. And that's going on this one. Chat coat. Just get something on there. Kind of look at it as like kind of like a primer on top of your primer. You know? Yeah, get a little bit to dry, and then you're going to go on there wet. Wet and heavy. Okay, you can kind of see it's getting glossy, but it's not thick yet. Give us a little bit of help with just some air. And I'll start putting more wet on it. Making it wet again. Alright. Then we're going to set that aside over here. We're going to clean this brush out. See the, I don't want to say the fun, I think it's fun for me, but of just how quickly and easily you move along with this, because you don't have to spend a ton of time taking an airbrush out apart to clean it. You just give it a, if you've got them thinned properly and you got a good paint, there's nothing to it. In fact, if I was to pull this needle out right now, since I got a little time, look at the needle, it's clean. See, if you go here, got just ever so little bit, but if I wipe it around here, nothing's coming off it, see? So that's a key. Good paint and proper thinning, and you're gonna have painless painting going on. Okay. Third tube, we got the X1 gloss black with Tamiya lacquer thinner yellow top. Close that up. Make sure we get the right piece. There you go. That coming out. Tack coat. Give that a little help with just some air. Now we're going to lay it on wet. Let me get this on the other side. It's shaking the camera. That's wet there. I don't know if I'm getting the camera angle right, but you should be able to see. It looks wet and puddly on here. And that is what you want. And there's 3. Still got quite a bit of paint left, so it's got good coverage, that's for sure. Alright, lost my pink brush. Here we are. Brush. That out. And you see, again, I keep telling you this paint's adaptable, it can take a lot. It's not having any trouble from that little tiny bit of residual cheap lacquer thinner sticking to the walls. Last tube number 10. It's going to be the X1 gloss black with Mr. Leveling Thinner. Unicorn tears, the bee's knees, the magic sauce. Here we go. This is going to take a little longer to dry because it's got a retarder in it, right? There you go. Let that sit a second here. While I tell you a little tip here, what some people will do is after when they're doing a gloss, after they've sprayed that last coat on there, they give it about 30 seconds to about at most 2 minutes. And then what they'll do is they'll get straight thinner, Mr. Leveling Thinner, and they'll give it a quick dust over that. And they'll walk away. And that's going to give it a little bit of extra shine and extra smoothness to it. I'm not going to do that for this test. We'll do that a little later when we get into the more advanced stuff, but we're just doing as advertised, as instructed methods of painting here, right? What the manufacturer says to do. Now, I talked about GX2 before. You know, we saw that the paint wasn't sticking to that. It's not meant to be a primer. It's basically for metallics. But some people who can't get their hands on that GX2 for a gloss black base for the metallics, they'll use the X1 gloss black with Mr. Leveling Thinner, and it does a pretty darn good job. It's a pretty good substitute. So, see, what I do is I start from the back end of my spray too, because then when I'm overlapping, it's easier to overlap it and push it over. So it actually helps you keep a good, wet, glossy finish. And I think that's all that's going to need. So let me finish. I'm going to clean this airbrush up, let these dry overnight. We'll take a look at them in the morning. See you then. I just remembered. Remember I pointed out how dirty my hands got. I spilled quite a bit of paint on me here. Something else I like about this Tamiya paint, this Tamiya Acrylics, is I can just get my IPA. You know, it shouldn't be dangerous to get on your hands. It's hospital stuff. And I just rub this on me, on my fingers, with a paper towel. And before you know it, you're going to have hands that are clean enough to just soap and water the rest of it off. See? Pretty much gone. Good to go. So that's the only thing I like about it. It's not difficult to get off of you. So again, good night. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Hey everybody, it's a lot past morning. I went to a model kit flea market this morning, and I'll show you a little minute long thing of that at the end of the video here today. The paints have dried overnight. We're going to look at them and see how they look with each one. We'll start with the flats. So you can see, where's my pencil? This was the one that we used. IPA is the thinner on. We'll start with the XF1 flat. So you can see it's got a little bit of a powder, well, it's got a bit of a powdery look to it, you know, kind of like the Vallejo does. Here's that spot that I over painted before I was telling you about to look for later. And the reason this looks so powdery and generally crummy is because it's 99% IPA. It dries very, very fast. Doesn't get a chance to get itself smoothed out. Another thing is because it's drying so quick, it dries before it hits the plastic. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to let you zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to take my cheap, wimpy paper towels and give it a gentle rub. Maybe a little bit of a firm rub, we'll see. Let's see if that helps it out any. Now, when a paint dries too quick, it's not going to stick well, even if you prime, and we're seeing that right now with the IPA thinned paint. Now you can see it helped it out a little bit to smooth it out, okay? But you can see we got a lot of damage there, okay? So let's move along. And you know, again, I'm using a paper towel, not a strong paper towel, but a paper towel nonetheless. You do it with something softer, you're probably not going to do too much damage to it. So let's go to the next one, and that was going to be the one that was thinned with the X20A. And that's this area here. Looks a little better. You can see my fingerprints and a couple scuffs. It's been handled a bit because I was moving things around on the bench today. But nonetheless, a little less powdery than the other one, but still a little powdery. And it's starting to get a little smoother here, but you can see still gets a little bit of collateral damage. Now the third one we tried with good old Tamiya lacquer thinner right here. And we can see that that one's still even powdery, even less powdery than before. Okay, so we're going to give that a nice little rub here. Oops, I got some dust on there. There we go. Now it's got my breath on it. That may have been worse than the dust. So anyway, give this a little rub. Now you can see this one's taking it a little better because it's lacquer there. It's a little stronger. So give that a little more rub. It still has. There we go. So now let me see if I can turn this lamp off to give you a better look so it's not so darn reflective. So this looks like damage right there, but that's actually just light reflections. You know, if I take that away, you can see it's not hurt. It's just light reflections. But you see, it's the stronger, the thinner you get, the smoother that paint's going to look, and the stronger it's going to hang on. So last for the flats, let's go look at the favorite of the team here, and that's the Mr. Leveling Thinner. And just looking at it without having rubbed it yet, you can see it's less powdery even than that before even giving it a gentle rub or even a firm rub. This is pretty tough stuff. I'm going to rub this kind of hard and see how it handles it. I'm going to go pretty hard on this. And with your flats, you might have to put another coat on over that. I mean, you know, we pretty much did quick coating with this. You know, this is just an experiment to show you things. Basic techniques like thinning and what the sheen's going to look like on each one, but proper spray paint technique wasn't addressed in this at all. We're just doing the quick way. So, but you can see now, I mean, look at it. Doesn't look powdery at all, but it does look flat. I mean, that's flat. If we take these from flat, well, let me do that after I've rubbed all of them so it gives you more honesty. All right, so there's the how the flats look. Let's go on to the semis, and I'm just going to rub these by themselves, and then we'll talk. Otherwise, we'll be all here. We'll all be here all day listening to me, which, you know, frankly, it's pretty awesome, but that's just how I see it. So anyway, let's just give these a good rub on the semis. And you're going to see right here these couple dots. I did that last night when it was still wet. I was moving a couple things around and got a little ham-handed and dropped something on it. So that's just one of the things that happened. All right, now let's look at the semis. We'll start with the IPA semi-gloss. Not terrible at all. I mean, it's about the worst thing you can do to your Tamiya paint is spray it with, you know, super strong alcohol because it doesn't get a chance to dry and level itself off, and it still came out pretty good. And you can see the damage is less than it was with the flat. The flats tend to be the ones that rub off the easiest and start losing things, which if you're looking to weather your airplanes, you know, more stuff on this much later when we start talking about weathering and all that stuff, but if you're looking to have like multi-layered chipping or any wear on it, I mean, it's good to hit that with a quick flat and just rub that right off of there, and then you can see what's beneath it. But anyway, back to the subject. Doesn't look bad at all. Minimal damage. Let's move on over to the X20A. And I rubbed this pretty hard too, but you can see it's got a little bit of damage, but you see it's really looking not bad at all. Not flat, not glossy, just right in between that nice little semi-flat. And, you know, remember, I'm not being nice to this using these paper towels. You really shouldn't be doing this. You should be using something much softer. Third one, Tamiya lacquer thinner. We gave that a pretty firm rub too. Looking even a little better than the other. Minimal damage, just some very fine rivets and these rivets and these raised panel lines. See, on a good model, you're not going to have this problem with the panel lines because they're going to be recessed and not raised. But you'll get the rivets worn, which is probably something you're going to want to have anyway. Then moving on to the Mr. Leveling thinner, the one we rubbed with that was thin with Mr. Leveling thinner. Very tough. Didn't even come off where the raised panel line detail is. Just those two dots right here I told you about, but that was me dropping my tweezers on it while it was still wet. And even at that, I mean, look at it. It fell down and leveled itself out nicely. Let me zoom out a little bit and see if I can get it to... Here you go. You can kind of see where the dings occurred, and it doesn't even have the edges around it where it got pushed up. But you see, nothing's coming off of there, and it turned out pretty nice. So let's give the... now the gloss we're going to do a little bit differently here, because... if you just rub it with this is pretty thick stuff. It's not going to really do much if you just rub it with a paper towel. So, and you're going to apply your gloss a little differently. You're not just going to go hit it once and be done with it. It's best to do your glosses in multiple light wet coats and let them dry well between. And if you really want it super good, give it a light, super fine sanding. And what I mean by super fine is, don't go using a 300, a 300 grit. Use something really high up there and use good sanding products. What I like to use are these things I showed you yesterday, these nail buffing things, You can get them in the beauty shop, and I just use the two highest ends of it, and I just do it pretty lightly. And you can get, let me see if my Bearcat's back here. You can get a ridiculously gloss, almost where it looks like it's never dried. Here's my Bearcat. And really, don't pay attention to the model. I did this a couple of years ago. I didn't do a good job on it, but the gloss is super. Look at that shiny gloss paint. See that? See how it reflects its own decals? You can get that just by something as simple as a little quick drag of the sander and doing multiple coats. Some people, I talked to a few card builders, and they're really good with their glosses because they obsess over that stuff, and they get to where they'll even put a clear between each one. They'll sand it and then clear it, and then sand that clear and then put the next one on there. So let me just take a minute here to take care of this. I'll dress these glosses, see if I can't make them look a little nicer for you, and then we'll just talk about you'll be able to see the difference between flat, semi, and gloss. Be right back. We are BACK returned. Now, what I did was I just took the 1,000 and 3,000 side to each of one of these sticks, and I gave them a good rub. And of course, there was collateral damage. I lost a lot of riveting in the raised panel lines, but then I just hit them really quickly with a very thinned out at 2:1 on all of them, ratio of thinner to their paint, and let that dry a little bit. And let's see how they've come back on the gloss. So you can see, and it's not completely dry yet, so don't pay too much attention to that pebbling. That'll settle down over time, but you can kind of see how the just doing that little step brought a lot of life to this one, even the IPA, see? And then with each subsequent stronger thinner that I've used, now I'm going to the X20A, each subsequent one is giving you a little bit better of a look. You'll notice the lamp is getting a little smaller and a little sharper. This is the Tamiya lacquer thinner. Each time that lamp is getting a little smaller and a little sharper, see? And on this one, you can even see where the light bulb ends and the reflector starts. This is the one with the Mr. Leveling thinner, see? So, and again, you see that pebbling? Don't pay attention to that because, these have only been drying for like 30, 40 seconds. And that will settle down nicely and flatten out. Maybe, not as much with the IPA because that's going to be dried probably by now. But each one of subsequent strength is going to look just a little bit better than the one before it did, So let me kind of remove this from the mount very carefully, and we'll take a look here. I'm going to kill this lamp because it's going to be a little bit too reflected, and we'll see if we got enough ambient daylight to do this, huh? So here's the IPA. Give you a little walk around that one. And there's the X20A. That's me a lacquer thinner, and of course the the Mr. Leveling thinner. So let me turn the lamp on now, and we'll see how the reflection of the lamp looks. Pretty tight. You see how, like I said, that little, don't worry about all that bubbling, that pebbling, that's going to go away. And so, while you can spray this for it with everything from IPA all the way through the lacquer thinners, you can see why you're going to probably want to go with the stronger ones first. Okay, so before I wrap up, I took the best of the three, and it's still drying, of course. It's only been about 45 seconds since I last talked to you here. Just so you can get the idea between flat, semi-gloss, and gloss. The color depth and the reflectivity is really going to be different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this flat part, and I'm just going to take this pencil tip, and you can see from any angle, it's reflecting absolutely nothing. It's just dead flat. It's a flat black. It's just there. Then when I go to the semi-gloss, when I get the pencil up here close enough, you can see the tip of it. Let me give it a little more light. That'll help you. You can kind of see the tip of that pencil is starting to reflect a little bit. See? As you get close enough to it. And that's good for, like, you know, propellers and stuff like that. But when you get to the gloss is where it really gets silly, and you can kind of really, I mean, you can see me back there with my blue shirt and my arm waving at you, and, you know, the pencil over here, you know, it gets a little better. So that's your differences in sheen, and it even can aid you in the depth of the color. It looks, you know, you can see it even looks a little different. And I've got all the lights off here, and you can see the difference in the reflectivity of the light. You know, all I've got is that one way up here on the roof. So let's wrap this up for the first portion of spraying Tamiya paints. And see, I told you this was going to be a long one. And then we'll move on to part two. Okay, so this will be the wrap up of the very first, well, the first of the second part of spraying Tamiya acrylics. This is just the very basics. Now there are things that are going to make a big difference in how this paint turns out for you. Okay, so like I said, this was just garden variety spraying your Tamiya paints. I didn't use a whole lot of discipline on the spray patterns. I just rough mixed it 1.5 or to 1 and 2 to 1. Didn't do anything between coats. I mean, even when I did multi-coats, you saw I just let it dry 25, 30 seconds, went to the second one. If you give it good time to dry between each coat, I mean, it's going to look a lot better than it does, and it already looks pretty darn good. So you can see that just going from a water-based acrylic to a solvent-based acrylic makes a pretty big difference. So what we still have to do, and by the way, we went through the flat, the semi-gloss, and the gloss. It's not over with that, because we've got these clear coats. If we don't like what we got, we can even adjust that with these things. We can mix those in the paint before we spray it. We can put it on after we spray it. And another great thing, and we're going to do that on the next one, another great thing about the Tamiya acrylics, and I told you how adaptable they are, is by going to the stronger thinners. If you're using the X20A, that's pretty much only going to mix these Tamiya acrylics, but you start getting into their lacquer thinner, or, you know, even better yet, the Mr. Leveling thinner. Now you can really start getting into neat things like mixing it with other paint brands and even paint types. And we're going to be doing that in the next one as well. We're not going to get into, you know, playing with the pressure and taking the cap off of the airbrush. I mean, it can go on forever. That's something we'll do later on when we talk about advanced airbrushing techniques. But I hope you're seeing the value in making what seemed like a small step up from a water-based acrylic. Just changing one paint type has just opened a whole world of better painting for you. And this thing was painted entirely, this stupid little bear cat was painted entirely with nothing but Tamiya glossy blue. And I think this was just 3 coats, and all I did was give them a drag of sand between, and sprayed another coat. Personally, this is a little bit too glossy for me. This is more of an experiment. Some people really like that. I mean, if this was a model car, I'd be all over it. That'd be great, but it just doesn't look like on an aircraft. It's too thick. But there's a way to control that. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Stick around. I'm going to give you a minute and 20-second clip of a walk around from the model kit flea market today, just to break the monotony of what we've been doing. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll get to you hopefully tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a real good one.
Smell good.
I heard somebody say something about that.
Well, I know that, but they didn't get
You're in this thing and you can't get out. Like you're in this lane, it's off the road, which destroys the car, which creates cells, automotive cells.
There's our friend Big Bob.